Only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Thank you guys for tuning into another edition of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright. I'm your host, Malik Wright, and we got a lot of stuff to get into, a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we do, as always, make sure you guys do me a favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or upload content. It's been a long week. It's been a long week filled with so much content. Because you know what? In our industry, content is king. We've had a lot of stuff going on. We've sat down with players. We've talked things through. And like I said, we're just pumped up for this. But I want to start this conversation off this morning in the Bay, in San Francisco. I want to talk about Kyle Shanahan. There was a report that came out that Kyle Shanahan might be on the hot seat. Niners management seems to be unhappy to a degree with Shanahan, with that current regime as it currently stands, because of the cap situation that they're currently in. And I find that interesting. But I think anybody who follows football closely could see this ending one of two ways: with a championship or with people losing their job. I think that's a very fair assessment. I think that's a very fair thing to say. And it doesn't really shock me. I think what shocks me is the fact that it got out. I think the part that shocks me is the fact that it got out, and now the pressure seems to be on in San Francisco. But the pressure is just not on in San Francisco. The pressure is also on, I would say, no, the pressure is on in San Francisco. I would say the pressure isn't on just Kyle Shanahan. It's also with some of the folks in the front office. This isn't just a Kyle Shanahan thing. Kyle Shanahan doesn't sign the checks. He coaches the team, right? And the fact of the matter is people want to see a winner out there. People want to see, hey, all the dollars that were invested, all the trade pieces that we made, right? And the Niners certainly have done a lot of that, right? Whether that be Trent Williams a couple years back, whether that be trading for Christian McCaffrey. They've done everything in their power to try to field a competitive roster. And then now they just paid Brandon Ayuk. It's one of those things where the Niners have had one of the more stout and talented rosters around the league, and they've been consistent. They've been consistent at being perennial playoff players. They've been consistent at making it to the NFC Championship. Hell, I mean, they made the Super Bowl 2 out of the 2 out of the last 5 years. They've done that. They've done all those things, and I think the results haven't really shown up for them. So I'm just going to caution the York family, the whole 9 yards, one thing. Remember how long it took you to get back to where you are. If you guys remember, this was a very similar thing that happened with Harbaugh. Harbaugh left San Francisco, not because he wasn't a good coach. He was a good coach. But tensions started to rise. Because for as talented as the roster was, they were living in the NFC Championship. Hell, they made it to a Super Bowl, but they just couldn't get over the hump. I don't know what it is or what's going on in San Francisco. The fact that they're so competitive, but they have a hard time breaking through. And I think it's one thing if it's, one coach. But outside of Harbaugh, this might be the second best coach the Niners have had in quite some time. And now we're seeing a situation where it might be coming to an ugly head. Don't get rid of good coaches because, you have a hard time getting over the hump. I don't know what necessarily needs to change. I feel like the quarterback position in Brock Purdy. Listen, Brock Purdy is a guy that has proven to be a winner in the National Football League. I think we can all agree to that. He's proven he could be a winner in the National Football League. However, what he hasn't proven is he hasn't proven the ability to be the X factor for the Niners football team. And I think that speaks to why they haven't been able to get over the hump too. People like to make excuses and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is the 49ers have had very, I would say, respectable quarterback play. I won't go beyond that. Respectable quarterback play. Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy, very similar players. Brock Purdy's just a little more efficient. Not a little more, a lot more efficient. And doesn't always put the ball in harm's way. I don't think that should be the reason why you move off that guy, though. I don't think that should be the reason why you move off of a Kyle Shanahan. I think that if the Niners had a true difference maker at the quarterback position, what they thought they were getting when they drafted Trey Lance, I think that could be the deciding factor. In today's National Football League, you need a true difference maker at the quarterback position. It's not enough to say, oh, I can go out there, I can throw the football, I can check it down, I'll protect the football, I'll have good stats, and we'll waltz our way to a champion. It's not enough. That's not enough. You need a difference maker at the quarterback position. Look who has won a championship as of recent. Difference makers at the quarterback position. Unless you're going to have a truly, game-changing offseason where you sign 18 free agents like the Philadelphia Eagles did the year that they went to a championship and turned their season around. Nick Foles was able to step in there. I don't think anybody could have stepped there at the quarterback position that year, and they probably would have won. That's how talented that roster was. But the fact of the matter is, man, this cannot be a situation in which you're looking at and you're saying, hey, yep, Kyle Shanahan is the problem. The fact of the matter is, Andrew Little, I agree with you in the comment section. If Kyle Shanahan was let go today, there will be teams that let go of their current coach who they would say probably isn't even on the hot seat for the chance to get that guy. Because that guy has proven he could do it. He has made Brock Purdy into a respectable quarterback in the National Football League. And that is not a dig at Brock Purdy, but I feel like we were having the same conversations when they made the Super Bowl. Is Brock Purdy good enough to get them over the hump? Is Brock Purdy going to be the X factor for the Niners? And then they say, you know what? You could win a championship. You could win in the National Football League with average play at the quarterback position. The Niners are literally living proof showing you that that's not the case. You don't have to be an MVP S-type quarterback, but you got to be able to do more. You got to be able to call your own number when things get rough. And I don't always just mean running the ball. That's not what I'm saying. The ability to have a I don't give up mentality almost. That's the type of mentality you have to have at the quarterback position. You have to. That's what separates a lot of guys. What separates a Joe Burrow, and I hate to bring it up, a Joe Burrow from a Brock Purdy? Joe Burrow's not out there always running the football. He's a dog. He has that type of mentality. Let me ask you a question, Daniel, viewers out there. Yeah. If the San Francisco 49ers had a Justin Herbert at the quarterback spot, I don't know if there's anyone out there that thinks Brock Purdy's better than Justin Herbert. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
Now, Justin Herbert needs to show it, of course, but if they had a Justin Herbert-esque type player, where do you think that team's ceiling will be? Daniel.
Yeah, I think their ceiling would be a Super Bowl. And what's weird, though, Malik, is I don't know if it necessarily is the quarterback. I don't know. And that's the conversation we have to have, right? Is because I view the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers very alike. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from this is why are we having this discussion, about Sean McDermott should be potentially fired when we're not having that discussion with Kyle Shanahan, right? And when you look at the two teams, I think they're very comparable because these are the two teams preseason that are always getting the hype. These are the two teams that at the end of the regular season have a 12-win season or heading into the playoffs as a favorite to win the Super Bowl. And then they both go into the playoffs. One team in the 49ers has made it twice, but the Buffalo Bills, I believe, are on the same tier, but they just lose to the Chiefs before they make it to the Super Bowl. So I really think that, I don't know, I think Brock Purdy can win a Super Bowl. It really just is up to, I think it's Kyle Shanahan thing, right? When you look at a guy like Mike McCarthy, why is he on the hot seat, but Kyle Shanahan isn't? So I think Brock Purdy is a very talented quarterback, and I think Justin Herbert is a different style of quarterback, but I 1000% agree. If they had a difference maker at quarterback, it would definitely up some things with the 49ers. But let me just also touch on the front office for the San Francisco 49ers, right? And Sean Brennan said, McDermott hasn't been to one Super Bowl, let alone two. I'm with you, but ask yourself, who are the teams that he lost to? And that's what I challenge you to look at, right? When you look at the teams that he lost to the Cincinnati Bengals team. He lost to the Kansas City Chiefs team twice. I think there's a huge difference between the talent in the AFC versus the NFC. And that's just my opinion, right? I look at the 49ers last year when they made it to the Super Bowl. It was a very impressive run, but it wasn't like it was an out of the world, holy shit, they were the number one team all along. Holy crap, they went undefeated. Holy crap. Like, they could have lost to the Lions. People forgetting that. Like, that game was easily, they were about to lose that game. And everybody was on the same page. Holy crap, Kyle Shannon's about to be on the hot seat. But they pulled out, crazy fourth quarter comeback, and we're having a different story. If they would have lost that game in the NFC Championship, we would have a totally different discussion right now. We would be saying, well, Shanahan has the best, most talented roster in the NFL, and he couldn't get to the Super Bowl again. So that's my concern with the 49ers. Sean Brennan, also, my guy, said, how much credit does John Lynch get for this run? Shanahan is great, but they got the Avengers over there. I agree. And that's what was, interesting about the report that came out. John Lynch was also included. And that's what's kind of, interesting to me is this team is as talented as any Super Bowl team there ever was. Like, I truly mean that. What other team has the weapons? I don't see a Kansas City Chiefs team that's ever had the weapons that the 49ers have. I don't see the Bengals, when they made the Super Bowl, ever having the weapons that the 49ers do. They got Debo, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. They have arguably a, top 5 defensive line. And when you look at the roster, it just really frustrates me, right? How this team, and especially a guy like Kyle Shanahan, can keep getting a pass. So my thoughts are, if Kyle Shanahan and this team don't make a deep playoff run, which is very possible because there's such thing as a Super Bowl hangover, right? A Super Bowl hangover tends to happen year after year, and there's very few teams that break the trend. The last team that really broke the trend was, kind of the Cincinnati Bengals in the regular season. But to be honest with you, that's just my biggest concern right now with the 49ers is, what's the conversation like if they don't make the Super Bowl this year? What's the conversation like if they don't go far?
So you think that Kyle Shanahan, and I'm happy that we're having this discussion. So you think Kyle Shanahan is almost getting a pass because his roster, you think Kyle Shanahan is getting a pass and Brock Purdy's getting all of the flame here is what I'm understanding correctly.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk more about that. Listen, when Brock Purdy came out, nobody expected him to do what he's doing.
Yep.
By all metrics, Brock Purdy has overachieved.
Yep.
I think that's fair to say. Right?
Yes.
He overachieved, and he's almost like, one could almost say he's playing on borrowed time, and the level of play he's playing right now. Mm-hmm. It was not expected. If Brock Purdy fell off a cliff tomorrow, nobody would really be shocked, because I think the expectation was, could he make a roster? Will he make a roster? Will he be anything in the NFL? Now, obviously, he's gone on to do some pretty good things. But I think we can all agree that when you watch 49ers football and you watch Brock Purdy play, you know that if the going gets tough gets going, is Brock Purdy going to be able to lead you back? Is he going to be able to be that guy that's going to be able to put the team on his back when things get rough in San Fran? They have gotten rough. Is he going to be that guy? He's not an X factor at the quarterback. He's a game manager, and a damn good one. And a lot of people have a negative connotation when it comes to the game manager title. They shouldn't. You hope that your quarterback at some point can be a game manager, because there is some point where your team is going to be up with the lead and you're going to have to do what? Manage the game. But my point is that guy going to be enough? Because there's going to be times where you get punched in the mouth by other teams. Can you answer the call? The fact of the matter is the 49ers realize they need a difference maker at the quarterback position. That's why they drafted Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. That's not a Kyle Shanahan thing where it fell off. Remember, Mac Jones was supposed to be a Niner. Mac Jones is supposed to be a Niner. That's the worst kept secret out there. They talked to Mac Jones. Mac Jones was under the impression he was going to be a San Francisco 49er. Those weren't BS takes, but he got overruled by who? John Lynch. So guess what? It is not Kyle Shanahan's job to construct the roster. It's Kyle Shanahan's job to be the guy that puts a game plan together for the roster that he has out there. It's not on him. And I think that's the big thing. So while you're rushing to probably crucify Kyle Shanahan, who's coming in and doing a better job than Kyle Shanahan has done for the Niners? Who's doing it?
I think there's a case. So let me, if there's just one, I think Bill Belichick could. And the main point that I really want to bring up, right, is what is the alternative, right? What do you do at this point? Is there a world where you go out and just say right now, all right, Brock Purdy, we're not going to re-sign you? Who do you get? That would be my question, right? There's two options here, right? Or three. Number one, you just run this back. You re-sign Brock Purdy. You keep Kyle Shanahan. You keep this talent in the roster and let it shake out how it shakes out, which is not a very bad plan. And that's the hands down the most realistic plan. Or you kind of look at Kyle Shanahan and say, okay, if they go ahead this year and Shanahan goes and they choke in the playoffs again, you can look at his history and say Shanahan does have a history of not going over the hump. Or you look at your quarterback right now, a guy that's on pace to pretty much get a huge deal this upcoming season, and say, Brock Purdy, we're not going to re-sign you. And that's my question, right? What would be the alternative? Do you go out in the draft and you trade up multiple first-round picks to get from where you're probably going to be at, pick 28, 27, and you move up into the top 10 to get a quarterback? It's possible. Or do you go out and get a guy like a Dak Prescott? Like, those are really your options right now. Do you go out there and do you trade for a guy like Kyler Murray if they have a bad season with Arizona? Those are kind of your options. And that's just how I view the 49ers. I think the 49ers' best chance is you have the most talented roster in the NFL, hands down. You see how this season shakes out, and you go from there. But in my opinion, I do think there are serious concerns. Not right now that his job's on the line. I don't think Kyle Shanahan will get fired after this year. But if there's anybody, I really do got to question Kyle Shanahan saying, hey, in the playoffs, what's the deal? You've got it time and time again. Is it the defense? Because the defense time and time again hasn't, really stepped up in the playoffs. And then what can you do? But when I look at a guy like John Lynch, I think John Lynch has done everything in his power to set this team up for success. And I think it would be a very huge mistake if the 49ers look at what John Lynch has built this roster to and say, that's on you. I need a new GM. Because I don't think there's many other GMs that can do what John Lynch did, trade for McCaffrey, build up these talents, and put this product that he's got. Because at the end of the day, I look at the rest of the roster on the NFL. I don't think they're comparable to this team.
Here's my thing: that you get rid of Kyle Shanahan, who I'm digesting this right now, and I'm taking it as you think Kyle Shanahan should be the odd man out if it came to that because he's the coach of the team. When I look at it, man, I don't feel that. I feel like if they were to move off of Kyle Shanahan, I think the Niners would be in hell. And I think a lot of teams will be looking, a lot of teams are going to be following the storyline. The mere fact that this story even got out.
Yes.
The mere fact that this story, that's even a story that we got to spend time on this morning show and talk about Kyle Shanahan, a guy who's literally lifted the Niners up, right? Yeah. And albeit there were some rough times. It took them a while to get the Niners to where they are right now. Yeah. They got it wrong at the quarterback spot with Trey Lance. They did.
Yes.
Brock Purdy was just, listen, Trey Lance, let's talk about it. Trey Lance, turnover machine in practice, not consistent, right?
Yep.
That's a real thing that happened.
Yep.
So when you mess up and you draft the wrong quarterback, you have to go through a little bit of a resetting period. Brock Purdy was just the guy that came in and was not turning the ball over
completely.
He was able to do his job, and that's a big part of football. Are you able to do your job? If you're able to do your job, then you'll probably see more playtime. If you can't do your job, somebody's going to replace you. Yep. Somebody will. Yep. So when I look at it, man, like at the end of the day, it's very simple to me. They don't have a difference maker at the quarterback position. They don't have a guy that can uplift them when things get rough. They don't have that currently. No matter which way we slice it, Brock Purdy is not a difference maker at the quarterback position. And I believe in the NFL, it's always going to come down to your quarterback. Yeah. This is an offensive-driven league now where it's so hard to play defenses. The days of the Legion of Boom are over, done with, dead. Not happening anymore. You breathe on a guy, it's a flag. So you need a difference maker at the quarterback position. And I'm not saying if everything lines up perfectly, you can't win Brock Purdy, but the chances of that happening versus it not happening is worldly different. That's just my thought process, man.
Yeah, my last thing I'll say is
Yeah.
if you're the 49ers, right, most likely they're just going to run this back. Before you give Brock Purdy that contract, and I agree, or a guy was saying Trey Lance is his only mistake, and that's a huge mistake. Trey Lance was a big mess up. The only issue is it at least showed, right, Malik, where they were, their head was aligned, right? They knew they needed a difference maker, but the rest of the quarterbacks sucked in that draft. Justin Fields sucked. Zach Wilson sucked. And we're talking from a franchise quarterback perspective. Mac Jones sucked. Like that entire class, besides Trevor Lawrence right now, has had an awful career. So if I'm the 49ers, I guess you kick around the tires, right? You kick around and say, okay, is Dak the guy? Okay, Kyler Murray. But who else? That would be my concern, right? Who else can you get?
There's a couple of situations I'm following, and if I'm the San Francisco 49ers, and those situations I'm following are guys that I think there has to be a clear, noticeable upgrade. I don't know if Dak Prescott. I saw a comment in here earlier saying Dak Prescott would do well with it. I don't know that because I think Dak Prescott has a very talented team right now in Dallas.
Yep.
Right. Maybe the difference is the coach. Maybe Dak Prescott could be something with the San Francisco 49ers. But for me, you have to look at the situation. You have this. When I look at the quarterback spot, I look at guys that are probably overstayed their welcome or just hasn't panned out for whatever reason. And maybe the team is looking to hit the reset button. I'm looking at situations. Look what the Rams did.
Yep.
Look what the Rams did. They got their quarterback out of a situation in which he was a long-term starter in Detroit. Things didn't work out. Brought him over there, won a championship with him. Regardless of what happens, Matt Stafford, this trade for Matt Stafford was a success. You got a Super Bowl out of him. All right. Regardless, he doesn't have to do anything else in his career. But when I look at it, Kyler Murray, situation I'm following, right? I've got to follow that situation.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It's in your division, right? So it might be much harder than probably trading for someone else might be. But I'm looking at the Kyler Murray situation. That hasn't panned out.
Yep.
He's on his what coach at this point, right? If things don't work out that way, you're probably gonna be like, hey, you know what? Let's try to move off and do different things, right? For me, I think that's a situation that makes a lot of sense. And what could Kyler Murray potentially look like on the San Francisco 49ers? You touch on that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and that's, I think the real conversation is I'm looking at, there's only really one option. If we're talking it's Brock Purdy or this guy, I think Dak Prescott is probably a better quarterback than Brock Purdy, but is that the difference? No, I wouldn't go out there and take Dak Prescott over Brock Purdy. I think they're very similar. Kyler Murray, Kyler Murray is the difference maker and is the one guy I can look at and say, okay, if the Cardinals were open to it, if they wanted to shift something up, Kyler Murray is the guy. I think he steps in, and I think that's a Super Bowl team. Obviously, not that it isn't right now, but I can see Kyler Murray with those playmakers being an MVP, being the MVP in the NFL. So it's really him, or if the Chargers want something different, if Jim Harbaugh says, hey, Justin Herbert's injury prone, I want something different, I want a game managing quarterback, you go do a swap Justin Herbert for Brock Purdy. Those are the two options I look at and say, it's Brock Purdy or this guy. And if I'm John Lynch, I think he saves his ass if you get Kyler Murray or Justin Herbert. Besides that, if you go and draft a quarterback, I don't think it pans out right now. So it's Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray, or Justin Herbert. And I think Kyler would be damn good on that team.
You know, I just find it funny because they were very, very close to, they were trying to pull out the stops to get Kirk Cousins. They were trying to pull out the stops to get Kirk Cousins. And it's like they almost like they have a certain mold at the quarterback position that they keep looking for. And like the guys that they might bring in might be like tiers above that guy or tiers above that guy. But is it really a difference maker? Right. And what I mean by that is like we can clearly look at it and say Brock Purdy was a couple steps above Trey Lance.
Yep.
Right. But if you then go out and you say, hey, we're going to sign a Dak Prescott, is Dak Prescott a clear step above Brock Purdy? Right. I think that's up for debate.
Yep. And
then you look at it and you say, okay, well, then we'll go Kirk Cousins. Well, Kirk Cousins is definitely a step above, Dak Prescott, I guess, right? To a degree. Maybe they're on the same level. It depends what you think. But it feels like it's very much they're on the similar mold of guys versus actually saying, we're going to go out and put our foot down and we're going to go out and sign a guy that's a true difference maker.
Yeah, that's the issue. I like Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is talented. I think he's good. I think he's a fan favorite. Let me phrase this. I would go Kyler Murray, and obviously this is hypothetical.
Mhm.
I would go Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert. There's a world where Kirk Cousins is the most available quarterback, though. And I'm with you. I think if you want a realistic option, Kirk Cousins is kind of similar to Brock Purdy. But if Brock Purdy isn't the guy, Kirk Cousins' job is on the line because they just drafted a first-round quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. Kirk Cousins, within the next year, I would not be shocked if the Falcons went out and shopped him. So if they want a different quarterback after this year, you kick around the tires for Kyler, for Justin Herbert, and you go call the Falcons. And the Falcons, I guarantee, would be open to listening to Kirk Cousins.
And I love what we got. The guy we have an active comment section right now.
Yeah.
Our guy Natty Ron says, he says that he lives in Arizona and they're not feeling Murray out there. He said the talk says this could be his last shot. And I agree with that. And Gary Jellison, I love what you just said. Is Jalen Hurts in the same category? Is he a true difference maker? You see, I love that because I think Jalen Hurts is also a guy that could be in a weird spot too. Right.
Yeah.
I think Hurts could be in a weird spot. I think that I think he can be a difference maker. I think the thing with Jalen Hurts is going to be consistently a difference maker out there. And if you get a Jalen Hurts as a consistent difference maker out there, man, we're talking something special here. But I don't think you get that all the time. And I think that's what that Niners offense is missing, right? And I think that's why I'm standing on the table saying, hey, they need to go out there, and if it doesn't work out this year, they need to go out there and get a true difference maker at the quarterback position. Versus before you even think about moving on from Kyle Shanahan, you haven't signed Brock Purdy to his extension yet, right?
Yep.
It's been 4 years, okay? You've been to a Super Bowl, you've put together a winning teams, but it hasn't gotten over the hump just yet. I'm not going to give up on my one of the best coaches in the NFL for a guy that was Mr. Irrelevant. I'm not willing to do that. You knew what he was when you drafted him. I think it's very clear to everyone that Brock Purdy doesn't make it on many teams. Like he doesn't work out.
Yep.
He isn't the player he is right now on any team. He needed a special coach who was willing to believe in him, and that special coach was Kyle Shanahan. So if you have a special coach in Kyle Shanahan that's willing to believe in him, get the most out of him, what could a special coach in Kyle Shanahan get out of Kyler Murray?
Yeah.
What could he do? And I hate to make this a Kyle Shanahan, Kyler Murray matchup and made in heaven, but hey, that's what we're for. We appreciate you guys spending your mornings with us. Again, the Sit Down with Malik Wright morning show is live Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday as we bring you the latest news in the NFL. We talk things through and we have those discussions with you and get you all fired up for the NFL. Let's talk about the Bengals. It wouldn't be a show if we didn't talk about the hottest team in the NFL, in my opinion, is coming into the season. Jamar Chase and the Bengals are on the clock. And, you look around, you see so many teams agreeing to contract extensions with said players, the whole 9 yards. You got to wonder, will the Bengals beat the clock? Will the Bengals beat the clock, and will the Bengals agree to something with their star wide receiver in Jamar Chase? It feels like something could be on the horizon. It feels like they are pushing to get something done. Nothing is done right now. I know there are a lot of people out there right now that believe that there is. They're pushing for it. They're fighting for it. I believe Jamar Chase will be out there week 1 for the Bengals. But we got to talk about this a little bit more. Will the Bengals beat the clock? Daniel, I want to hear you touch on it a little bit more. Do you think Jamar Chase and the Bengals get a deal done?
Yeah, I think they do. And when you look at the Bengals, yes, you can look at their history and say, well, they've messed up contracts. Well, they've let guys go. Well, they're the Bungles. This would be, in my opinion, a major F up if they head into the season without a new contract for Jamar Chase. And it's not to say that, he needs it right now, but it's the fact that, hey, your guy is telling you what he wants, right? And I think it would set a very bad precedent for Jamar Chase and just for the rest of the people that, want to join the Bengals. And especially your guy at the end of the day, owner Mike Brown, he went out and he said this. He said that there are 2 people on this roster that are going to get whatever they want. And it was Joe Burrow, and the next guy was Jamar Chase. So if you speak that highly of a guy, if you speak that glowing of a guy, you're not going to give him his damn contract.
Right.
And especially, it's not that they are not giving him the contract. If they went to the season and Jamar Chase didn't make this big deal about this, then it's a different story. But your guy is saying, hey, I'm not practicing. Hey, I'm not playing. Hey, I'm making my statement now because I want my money. This would be a major F up if they head into the season without a contract in place for Jamar Chase. And it's not because of what is right. It's because, or it's not because of doing what is by the book, but it's doing right by your players, and it's doing right by Jamar Chase. And if this was any other player, there's maybe a different conversation had. We see what happened with T. Higgins. We see what happened with Trey Hendrickson. Those guys, you could say, are great players, but the Bengals could look at themselves and say, hey, those guys are replaceable. I struggle to see Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase as replaceable. Same thing with Evan McPherson. They went up and they locked that guy down. Yes, he is not the star wide receiver, but he is a place where you could say he is very irreplaceable. Jamar Chase is irreplaceable. Give him his money. And if they don't, we could be having a different conversation. If they don't give him his money, I think there's a world where it's like, okay, we got to start watching Jamar Chase. Obviously, I'm not saying he would do anything, but I would be pissed off. So the Bengals should pay him his money before week 1.
You have a way of just getting under my skin.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad.
You don't
agree?
I don't think that's in Jamar's nature. I really don't. I think that Jamar, he understands that the rest of these guys are getting paid, and he's in a position right now where, he really doesn't have leverage, but I think it's because of his good standing with the organization. He can ask to be paid now. I mean, I like, if he was in bad standing with the organization or didn't produce, he probably wouldn't be in a situation where he could ask for that right now. I think that this situation has been totally misread by national media. And I say national media, we cover national sports, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's been completely misread. I think that Jamar Chase is just in a spot where I think a lot of it is about protecting himself, knowing that he's going to be in for a big season this year, knowing that he's going to be eligible. Well, he's eligible for contract this year, but knowing that next year, that's when probably the next offseason, he'd probably start negotiating real money. But I think it's like, okay, I do want to get paid. I see my peers getting paid. I believe I'm worth it. I believe that I've exceeded any rookie quote unquote contract you guys have given me. I'm due for a raise. And I think that's fair to say. Listen, if your job says, you know what, we're going to bring you in with a class of people, right? And we have a fixed amount. We have a fixed rate, right? Let me break it down this way. We have a fixed rate of what we sign to newbies or people that we bring on to the company, and everybody plays at that rate and you're locked into that for 4 years. And the first quarter sales, the sales jump for the company. Then they look at the numbers, everybody's numbers, and you're a big reason as to why. You've made this company millions and millions and millions of dollars. I mean, they're up there. They're successful, the whole 9 yards. And yet and still you walk in every single day and you're in that fixed rate that you came in with, knowing that you're the big reason why the success has happened. You're the big reason why the company is booming the way it is. It is well within your right to walk up and say, hey, you know what? Listen, I respect everybody and what they do. I respect the fact that we have procedures in place. I respect the fact that I'm in a fixed contract rate. But have you seen the numbers I've put up? Yeah. He has the ability to go down as the greatest wide receiver in Bengals history. There has been so many great receivers that have come through Cincinnati. Ocho Cinco, AJ Green, right? Collinsworth. The list goes on. And that guy is making those numbers look like cakewalk. Yep. That guy is commanding so much attention on the defense. That guy is the reason why so many others are getting paid. Truly an alpha male at his position. It is in his right to go to that team and say, hey, I believe I deserve more. I know that I'm in that fixed rate, but can we up it a little bit? Because at this point, you are getting me at a bargain. And I still want to be able to give my all to this team. I still want to see this team win a championship, but can you give your all to me within reason? I think that's fair to say. I think that's a fair assessment. And I think it's one of those things where the Bengals know what they have in the wide receiver position. The Bengals understand what they have at the wide receiver position. And if they don't know, I don't know where they've been. Go ahead. Yeah.
Completely. And that's where, Malik, I think Jamar Chase is completely within his right now. And that's where, yes, maybe he's jumping the gun, right? Okay, not very often do we see people getting this huge extension 2 years before. And that would just be my conversation, right? Is where does it stand if the Bengals don't give him that contract? But in my opinion, I think they're going to. And that's where I really struggle to see with how it's gone up. And maybe I'm reading too much in the tea leaves of, what Joe Burrow is posting, what Jamar Chase is posting, Jamar Chase returning to practice. I've got a feeling that they've got something in place. I've got a feeling that they both know, hey, regardless, it's going to work out. You are here for the next 6 years. And that's where I stand with it. I think they're very confident. And I think we would be seeing a different tune in Jamar Chase if that wasn't the case, right? I think T. Higgins this offseason was a good predictor and a good stance of saying, hey, what does it look like when the Bengals aren't budging? Because that's how I truly feel. I feel like with T. Higgins, it was a different conversation. And I commend T. Higgins real quick. I commend T. Higgins for his thought process, because I think T. Higgins could right now be doing something completely different if he was, in looking at it from just a selfish, hey, I'm looking at myself. But T. Higgins, I think, understands, and that's why it's a totally different conversation between the two. T. Higgins is coming this season to work. Yeah. T. Higgins is coming this season to show off and earn his contract. Jamar Chase, I've got a feeling, and I'd be confident that, hey, and it's a smart thing to do, respectfully, to pay Jamar Chase now so you don't have to pay him next year, because the price next year, after a dominant season, I'd be concerned, Malik.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I'll say this. I think T and him are in a very different situation. I think it's a situation in which T needed to showcase not only to the Bengals, but to the NFL that, hey, I'm here, I'm ready, because he hasn't put up the same numbers that Jamar Chase has, right? There has been those injury concerns at points and the consistency there. T's going to get paid. T's going to make a lot of money, whether that's in Cincinnati or somewhere else. The fact of the matter is, he needed to show it. He needed to show it. Listen, if T went out there and balled out, Bengals have no problem paying him. They have no problem. They would have no problem. But it's like, asking for upwards 20 plus million, whatever you're asking for, it has to make sense. You can't, it's not Madden. You can't just throw out money just to throw out money. It has to make sense. Jamar Chase has proven his worth and then some. And the numbers he's put up has been ridiculous. And I think Jamar Chase is going to be in for another big season here. I'm really curious to hear what you guys all say in the comment section, or think in the comment section, regarding Jamar Chase in his contract situation. I love what Drew's saying, pay the man his money and let's get to know. I love that. Yep. Gino said, like Ocho said, if Mike Brown doesn't want something, to happen, it won't happen. 100%. But the fact of the matter is, it's one of those weird situations where it's, you definitely know the guy has more years on his contract, and you probably be doing. You probably jumping the gun here a little bit, but it's one of those guns where you got to jump, and if you expect him to be a staple in your organization, because I believe he is the second most important player on this team. Easily. Maybe even on this team. Yeah, maybe on this team as a whole. I was going to say on the offense, but I'll definitely say on this team for sure for what he does, man. And I think it'll pay dividends, and I think you pay that guy.
Real quick, Christopher Handmaker said, but Jamar has not put up the numbers that JJ has. And that's where I personally don't think that's a fair assessment to make. Maybe Jefferson has put up crazier receiving numbers, but when you look at the pure impact on the team, and it's important to look at different situations, because these are two completely different teams. The Minnesota Vikings and the Bengals are two way different teams. Jamar Chase is widely regarded on that same tier as Justin Jefferson. You go ask, and this is what you look at and to compare. You go ask any GM, you go look at any quarterback, they're all saying Jamar Chase is on that same tier. And if not, they're saying he's right there, 4 or 5. And okay, maybe he needs a year to prove that he has the most receiving yards in the NFL. But at least from us watching the game, seeing his impact, go look at that Chiefs playoffs game last year or 2 years ago. Go look at that play he made on 4th down.
I think Chris is what? Listen, I'll say this, Chris, and I agree with you. But I also think, to Daniel's point, there's a different style of offensive play at work here, and I think that Justin Jefferson is the guy in Minnesota. Jamar is the guy here in Cincinnati, but Justin Jefferson's game is much more of a volume style of game, where over and over. Like, they really didn't, before they brought TJ Hawkinson, and they really didn't have another option that they could consistently go to that was reliable, that was going to be able to, take this team to the next level. And I think that Justin Jefferson found himself getting so many targets, and that the Bengals have so many mouths to feed, like a T. Higgins, like a Jamar Chase. When Tyler Boyd was here, they had Tyler Boyd, of course. So I think having a Jamar Chase was amazing, is amazing for the team, but it also allows other guys to get their numbers off. So I think that's why you don't see, I think that's why you don't see the same style of numbers. That's not to say Jamar Chase isn't capable of it. Jamar Chase is certainly capable of putting up those same numbers, but he's just not in a volume type of situation in which he's like the only guy getting the fair share of targets. Jordan Addison is starting to evolve more and more as a wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. But the fact of the matter is he was honestly their deep ball go guy, honestly. So like, Justin Jefferson's a guy that can kind of do it all. So I think that's why the situation in terms of the numbers haven't been the exact same from Jamar Chase versus Justin Jefferson. But Daniel.
The last thing I just want to add is, even if you believe that Jamar Chase isn't as good of a receiver as Justin Jefferson, it's how the NFL works. And you look at the quarterbacks, these guys, it would be, and it may sound crazy, right? Okay, it's only $1 million. It would be disrespectful to Jamar if he didn't get paid as the best wide receiver. That's how it works. You go look at the quarterbacks, right? Joe Burrow got paid the same amount as Trevor Lawrence. Tua got paid $500,000 more than Jared Goff. Kyler Murray got paid $500,000 more than Deshaun Watson. It is a thing of, hey, whatever the last guy got paid, I just need more of that and I'm good. And it's as simple as that. So yes, while Justin Jefferson may be up, you could say he's a better wide receiver than Jamar Chase. It doesn't matter. He's your guy and you pay him like he's your guy. You pay him more than whoever just got paid. And that was Justin Jefferson. So
yeah, and that is the name of the game. And Lawrence, I disagree wholeheartedly. Again, this is a very active morning show. We'll try to include you guys in the conversations. Is the whole reason that T doesn't have a contract is because of Jamar Chase. Period. No, that I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I think T is his own separate entity, and I think that if T, there are some things that T needs to do in order to get the contract he wants. I mean, T could have certainly have agreed to a contract from the Bengals, but would it have been the one that he knows that's worth his value or what he believes he's valued at? And it's one of those things where if you believe that you're a certain value, you have to produce as such, right? You have to show that I can stay healthy. You got to show you got to be out there, but that's not just a Bengals thing. That's a whole entire NFL type of thing. You got to be able to show that you're capable. But one thing I will say is, if you see guys like Christian Kirk and all those guys, they got ridiculous amount of money. Will have no problem getting his his money. He will get paid, whether that's by the Bengals or by another team. I fully believe that. Our guy Corey Jennings says in the comment section, what do you think the Bengals do if T. Higgins balls out this year? Do you think they pay him or do they tag and trade? I could see a situation in which they tag him. I don't know if they'll trade because I don't I don't know if that they'll I don't know if the Bengals will ever really like get the true value in which they want for their players, because that's just that's just how they do business. But I could see a situation in which they tag him and they want to do it again. Now, at that point, you probably don't want to disgruntled Higgins if you tag him without the mentality of having a deal in place or trading him to another team where he can compete and be a number one and get paid. Honestly, think about it. These guys enter free agency for the first time, and it's like, man, you're waiting for that big payday, and it gets prolonged and prolonged and prolonged. At some point, listen, you'll be like, okay, 21 million or whatever the tag is. You're not complaining about that because it's 21 million. Nobody's upset to see 21 million enter their bank account. But where I think the conversations kind of get a little bit, tricky is when it's like, all right, well, at what point do I get that security? At what point am I able to be like, you know what, I don't have to worry about my contract. I no longer have to think about that, right? Because it is a conversation that probably does weigh on these players' mind. Someone says, Jordan says, you all really think T's performance is the main issue, not guarantees? No. I think that's the point. They're tied together. It's not to say T has performed. T has performed, but I think that when you're asking for top wide receiver, the fact of the matter is they want wide receiver one money. And in order to get wide receiver one money, you have to be consistent. You have to be out there. He has dealt with his fair share of injuries. I think that's a fair assessment to make. I think that's a fair thing to acknowledge without, putting biases aside and all that. I think that's a fair thing to talk about. And I think once you realize, okay, that hasn't all been the case, hasn't always hit the 1,000-yard mark as well. And that's the true measure of a great receiver. That's why all these receivers are striving to hit 1,000 yards, because they have that body of work to show teams like, hey, listen, this is what I'm able to do. Hey, this is the amount of games that I play when I'm out there. When you have the two kind of, mixing together where it's like you haven't necessarily been out there, that's the big thing. But from my understanding, it has everything to do with, I think the guarantees, the amount you're asking for, but also performance based. It's like the Bengals have a value in which they value him at, but it's like what you're asking for, it has to make sense. It has to all mesh together. And if it doesn't, well, then that's when you got to say, I'm going to go out there that last year, I'll play on the tag and I'll prove myself. And that's what he's doing. But yeah, I appreciate I appreciate the question. Ryan Sparks says it's wild that the tag for him would still be below market value. That is pretty insane when you think about that. Um, yeah, and I agree, Drew. Drew says if you're going to tag him twice, you might as well just guarantee him the money he wants
Yep.
long term. 100%. I think that can cure a lot of the heartache, a lot of the issues that are facing this whole situation. But as far as right now, the Teagan situation is not at the forefront of the mind. It's getting Jamar Chase done, figuring that out, and then hopefully their season can start off strong, and then they can go from there. But we appreciate the comments. If you guys could do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Listen, Ravens and Chiefs play each other tonight. Football is back. Football is king. Let's talk that one through. Big game.
We back.
Big game. I know we're going to talk about our favorite bets for the game, but let's just talk about the Ravens this year. Right? It was a weird offseason for them, right? They lost their defensive coordinator, Mike McDonald. A guy in Lamar Jackson has been in and out with the sickness and all that stuff throughout training camp and the whole 9 yards. But when we look at it, could this be the year in which the Baltimore Ravens upset the Kansas City Chiefs and kind of start the season off strong? Do you see upset potential right here when you watch this Ravens football team? Do you think that they can knock off the Chiefs tonight?
1000%. And this kind of goes I've got two thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
One, I'm very confident, this is weird, but I'm very confident that the Chiefs are great this year. I'm very confident. You can say, obviously, they have a rookie offensive tackle. They've obviously got another offensive tackle who isn't the greatest offensive tackle in the world. And they've got an aging Travis Kelce. They lost some pieces on defense. I'm still very confident that this team is going to be a top 5 team. I'm very confident that this team is going to get 12 plus wins. Does that mean that they start off strong? I don't know. And the reason why I look at this, I think this is all based on matchups. I'm of the belief right now, and this is just for my prediction for the year, I think the Ravens finish 3rd in the AFC North. I think the Bengals finish above them, and I think the Browns finish above them. But that doesn't mean that the Ravens can't win this game. And I'm picking the Ravens to keep this game close. And the reason why I am is John Harbaugh is one of the greatest coaches in week 1. He keeps his team prepared. Lamar Jackson is one of the greatest quarterbacks when it comes to being an underdog. And there is a lot of added motivation, Malik, when it comes to this Ravens versus Chiefs game. And I think that's what's really going to rear its ugly head for the Chiefs. I think this game is close. I think it's a 3-point game. I think it's either the Ravens win or they lose by a field goal. And like I said, it's just too much added motivation for losing in the playoffs. That was a brutal defeat for the Ravens. And I promise you, Harbaugh's been thinking about it all year. Lamar's been thinking about it all year. The offense coordinator's been thinking about it all year, which is why they went out and they added Derrick Henry because, Malik, what did they not do in the playoffs? They didn't run the damn ball. They had 6 total rushes to the running backs in the playoff game, and that's a huge reason why they lost. The offense coordinator, Todd Monken, he was grilled all offseason long by Ravens fans, by social media saying, why the hell did you not run the ball? They added Derrick Henry. They promoted Zach Orr, who's, one of the most promising guys. Yes, there's going to be a drop-off because they lost their defense coordinator, but let's not get it twisted. In-house Zach Orr is going to keep this defense at least respectable. They have Kyle Hamilton, who has been the best defender in all of NFL of guarding Travis Kelce. So when I look at this game, I think the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. I think the Chiefs are going to be great this year, but it wouldn't shock me at all, Malik, if the Ravens come out after a long offseason with at least their team is healthy right now, and they come out and upset the Chiefs week 1. So I think an upset could be brewing. I think that this Ravens team has been prepping for the Chiefs team. And like I said, this is a 3-point game or the Ravens win outright.
Man, and let's touch on that a little more. Let's talk about some of our favorite bets. And I want this to be the part where you kind of just live in your reality, if you will. And I want to allow you to kind of like get people all squared away for some of your favorite bets for this game.
Beautiful. And once again, if you guys are watching this, we appreciate you guys watching this. Simply give this a like. Also, comment down if you guys have any predictions. If you guys have any of your guys' best bets, let us know. Our guy Gary Jellison said all the Ravens were hurt for that game. Exactly. All the running backs were. And right now, the Ravens running backs, that's where I'm going to personally start for betting wise. Keaton Mitchell is out, which hurts. They have 2 very good running backs, so let's not get it twisted. Derrick Henry and Justice Hill, and that's where I'm going to start off, right? The Chiefs are not a great run defense. Last year, and this is where I'm going to start, Derrick Henry's rushing yards, I think, is one of my favorite plays for the day. I think Derrick Henry is going to go out and be super consistent. I think Derrick Henry, his touchdown line is only minus 120. Derrick Henry's going to score a touchdown. I look at the rest of these guys. Mark Andrews, I think, is probably the next best possible guy, but I don't see Rashad Bateman going out there and cooking that second. I don't see, Zay Flowers. I think Zay Flowers is solid, but I wouldn't be surprised if Trent McDuffie has the locks on him. So I think the way I'm looking at this, Derrick Henry's rushing on 65.5. You look at there's been 10 running backs last year that went and rushed for 12 or more attempts against the Chiefs. 8 of them had over 65 yards. And these guys aren't as the talent of Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is healthy right now. I wouldn't be shocked if right now Derrick Henry, like I said, after last year's playoff blunder, if they go rush Derrick Henry for 20 plus times, he goes out and has over 65.5 yards. That's easily my favorite play. But if you want a little sprinkle, take him to have 100 plus yards. I wouldn't be shocked if they go out and just pound the rock, Derrick Henry. And having Lamar Jackson as his quarterback, rushing wise, is going to help because you look at the quarterbacks he had with Tennessee, Will Levis, Ryan Tannehill, they don't run the ball. So that dual threat actually helps Derrick Henry, doesn't hurt him.
And Gary Jellison asked, he said, is there a Mahomes interception prop, which I'm on FanDuel right now. I know people were saying, if you guys are putting out bets, can you please, just jump in there and tell us what sportsbook you're using. If you want to use Patrick Mahomes to have an interception sitting at minus 120. So that definitely is a prop out there. But continue down.
And that's something I like. I like Patrick Mahomes having an interception. You look at what he did last year against the Lions, week 1, he had an interception. When I'm looking at this, the bottom line, and especially with sports betting, guys, is you have to look and find an edge. Mahomes' line to, pass attempts is 39.5.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to throw the ball. So if you're getting me a guy who's going to throw the hell out of the ball, I think Mahomes, it wouldn't shock me if he goes out there and throws an interception. So I actually personally like that.
Daniel, how about this? Isaiah Pacheco over 2.5 receptions.
Over 2.5, yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that.
I love that.
Swing routes, whole 9 yards. Isaiah Pacheco to have 2.5 receptions. That's what his line is at right now. I think he does that. So if you guys are looking for a prop that you sort of want to take, definitely looking at that. Isaiah Likely's catch his prop is at 1.5. Listen, I'm looking for the weird ones. I'm looking for the weird ones, like the ones that'll, because the one thing about week 1 is expect the unexpected at points, right? But I'm looking at guys that have started to emerge. Obviously, Mark Andrews is, he was in a car accident, I think a couple weeks back, and I know he's missed some time in practice. He seems to be all systems go now, but you wonder during that time, did it allow Isaiah Likely to start to build some more rapport in that offense? And could you see a situation in which Isaiah Likely can get 2 catches tonight? I could certainly see a situation because who you're looking out for. Mark Andrews is the guy, right? And he's coming back off of that the injury he dealt with, obviously, last offseason, last season. I think Isaiah Likely makes a lot of sense. Over 1.5 catches, I kind of like that a little bit.
I like that. And we got, Gary Jellison said Ravens secondary is tough and versatile. Exactly. The defense may take a step back overall this year, but I think they're still consistent. This game, this kind of takes me to my next point. Benjamin Harrison said, "Who day or TWSN? We appreciate you."
Appreciate you, man.
I think that this game goes under, and this is probably one of my favorite bets because you look at, we got some numbers real quick. 85% of the people right now are currently taking the over. It's week 1. We look at how often, people bet the over. That's what the public does. They bet the over. And when I look at this game, I think these are 2 teams that know each other. I think these are, like I said, a Ravens team that's going to come out here and they're not going to make life easy for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to go and on the road, they're going to go punch them in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs make life easy on Lamar Jackson. I think they're going to make life a hell for this Ravens team. You look at the offensive line. Yes, the Ravens offensive line has gotten decimated. So easily one of my favorite bets. If you guys are not taking player prop, something I like, and it may suck taking an under, but week 1, give me the under on the opening game, 47.5. That's still, you can get 24-23 game, very close scoring game. But still give me the under 47.5 for the total game. And Malik, I've got a weird one. Mm-hmm. And Sean Brennan, I'm going to get to your point because that's something I really like with Xavier Worthy. We'll talk about him. Justice Hill is the backup running back for the Baltimore Ravens, but Todd Monken and John Harbaugh both said, hey, we're going to use both of our backs. We're going to get Justice Hill the ball. And it's smart. You look at Derrick Henry, his entire career, a lot of times he hasn't had that number 2 running back. Last year, he had it in Tajay Spears. Mm-hmm. And what did Spears do? Spears came in third down, got a lot of screens. And when you look at Justice Hill as a weapon, he catches a ton of screens. His last 7 games last year, he went over this prop in 6 of his last 7 games. So I'm looking at Justice Hill over 8.5 receiving yards is that's honestly probably my favorite bet for this. And the reason why, like I said, is that's something that nobody's going to be on. Everybody is going to be on the Derrick Henry prop. Everybody is going to be on Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson rushing yards. Justice Hill over 8.5 receiving yards is something where it is going to cash, and it's going to cash early. He's going to be the third down back. He's going to come in, and like I said, it's 8.5. And it's not like this is a backup running back that you have to pray that he gets snaps. John Harbaugh has literally said this dude is going to see 25 to 30% of our snaps. So if you're getting me a guy you're getting checkdowns game 1 when Lamar Jackson hasn't, played in the preseason, Justice Hill over 8.5 receiving yards, I think he cashed that in the first half. And that's easily, that's a sneaky bet that not a lot of people are going to take. Sean Brennan, let's get to his. He said Xavier Worthy, 50+ yard touchdown bank it. Xavier Worthy's line, I believe, is at 49.5, 45 to 49. Let me find it, but I think that's a lock. I think Xavier Worthy right now, you look at the receiving yards, I like Rashee Rice. I think Rashee Rice goes out and gets 6+ receptions. His line's at 5.5, because when you look at the Ravens, the defense that they play a ton of cover 2, Malik. And with cover 2, what tends to happen is you leave the middle of the field open. You leave the under routes open, and that's going to be where Travis Kelce, that's going to be where Rashee Rice, really lives. And Rashee Rice, when you look at where he's getting most of his receptions, he's not a deep down the field threat. He's not winning 50-50 balls. He can, but he lives on the quick portion. He lives on the quick drag route. So Rashee Rice, 6.5 or 6 receptions, I really like, as well as I do like Xavier Worthy, over 45.5 receiving yards. James Angeles said, does that video of Xavier Worthy get tossed around practice worry anyone? I think it definitely can worry you long term. It can definitely say, holy crap, this dude may get rocked. This dude may, have injuries, because the NFL is different. But when we're talking about the Chiefs offense, I saw Marquez Valdez-Scantling cook many teams. I saw Juju Smith-Schuster cook many teams. I saw so many Chiefs receivers cook. And when I see the speed of Xavier Worthy, show me that preseason game, and that's all I need to know. Xavier Worthy had 4 targets for the Chiefs. He caught a touchdown in that game. And I would be very shocked if they don't use him. At least 5 targets. And for Worthy, it takes 1, Malik. So Xavier Worthy, I love his over. Isaiah Pacheco, could it be a big ground heavy game? Gary Jellison said, I think it could. But to be honest, I think the Chiefs offense knows where their intentions lie. And their intentions are to pass the damn ball.
Can I give you a weird one, Daniel?
Yep.
A weird one. You brought up a weird one. I'm going to bring up a weirder one. Noah Gray over 12.5 receiving yards.
Yeah.
I think in all the games they played last year, postseason and regular season included, I think he hit that mark close to 11 times.
Yep.
That is a guy that's he's usually good for 1 to 2 catches a game.
Yep.
And with all the attention being focused in on Travis Kelce, I could certainly see Noah Gray showing up in a big spot for the Chiefs. And it'll be a weird one. It'll be like on a big third down conversion. Like, who was that, Travis? No, Noah Gray with the catch. So I think Noah Gray has a big catch. Pacheco, again, I'll say that again. Pacheco over 2.5 receptions. Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Those are 3 props that I absolutely love for the game. And if you were making yourself a little parlay, then you could talk to people really quickly. I'm going to try to put that together and see what it looks like.
No, for sure. And I'm definitely with you. I think I like Noah Gray. And that's what kind of concerns me, honestly, about these props week 1, especially for this game in general, is there's not a ton of, with the Chiefs, it's weird. They are weird. They go to Justin Watson. They go to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They go to Samaje Perine. And that's what does concern me about the Chiefs. So I'm staying away from the guys. Even Travis Kelce, a lot of people are taking his over today. I'm good off of it. I think that he could. I think his rapport with Patrick Mahomes is great. But let me focus on the guys that I know are going to have a niche role, and I know that the public aren't going crazy over. And like I said, that's why Justice Hill is my favorite receiving bet of the day.
Yeah, like I'll be honest with you. Even let's touch on that, Lamar. Like you were right, you are right. They're very weird. I used to live for the prop of Rashee Rice to have 4 catches. It used to stay at 2.5 or 3.5. Now it's at it's 5. And will he get that? I could see him getting that, but that's the only reason why, because they go to him a lot in their quick screen game. They go to him a lot for a lot of just check downs. I think that's a safe bet. I think Rashee Rice to have 5 catches today is a safe bet.
Yes.
If you're putting together a nice little parlay, and we're going to do this for the Sit Down with Malik Wright morning show people. Again, appreciate you guys spending your mornings with us. If you're looking for a little prop to go for the game, I've got 4 for you right quick. And Daniel, if you think that this is absolutely horrible, awful, you tell me and you be honest with me, brother. All right. It's Patrick Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
Noah Gray over 12.5 receiving yards. Isaiah Pacheco over 2.5 receptions, and Rashee Rice 5 receptions. Right. You have to go to the alternate line for that. Or if his prop is still at 4.5, you can kind of go there. That's plus 585. It's good value. If you don't trust the Noah Gray and you're like, hey, I want to leave Noah Gray out, that's still a plus 268 parlay on 3 plays. Sprinkle a little bit on it, throw $100 on it, see where you end up. Right. I mean, I think that's something that it can make a lot of sense for a lot of people out there. I think I'm going to go against my my thoughts. I think the Chiefs win this game too.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the Chiefs win this game. And I think that if you think the Kansas City Chiefs win this game, because they're sitting at minus 154, you can go with Patrick Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns, Isaiah Pacheco over 2.5 receptions, Rashee Rice 5 receptions, and Kansas City Chiefs money line. That's plus 449. That's good value. That's really, really good value. Hell, I'll even go a step further, Daniel. If you really believe in Isaiah Pacheco and you believe this could be his game, and you don't think Roquan Smith will scare the guy off a little bit, you can go to his yardage. You can go to Isaiah Pacheco's yardage is only sitting at 14.5. Receiving yards, sitting at 14.5. I think he hits that. I think there's going to be a lot of check down to Isaiah Pacheco and seeing what works for him. And if you were to include all 5 of those, that's still plus 565. I'd trust that a little more than I would just what's his face, Noah Gray getting over 12.5 receiving yards. So again, Mahomes over 1.5 passing touchdowns, Pacheco over 2.5 receptions, Rashee Rice 5 receptions, Chiefs money line, and Isaiah Pacheco over 14.5 receiving yards. That is what I'm going with for today's game.
I'm with you. And that's where, like, especially for these games, Malik, it's go with what you know. And that's where it is weird. Like I said, for this game, I love Lamar Jackson being an underdog. I think the Chiefs can win. I like the Ravens plus 3. If there's anything I'm going to be looking at, like I said, Lamar Jackson just as an underdog, he's 12-1 against the spread as an underdog in his entire NFL career. So he does great as an underdog. Like I said, I think this game's close. I think we see 24-23, Malik. I think we see the Chiefs win by 1 point. We see Patrick Mahomes go out there, has two passing touchdowns. And I've just got one real quick.
Sure.
If you guys want something super safe, extremely safe.
He's the safe man.
And I love this. This is basically the same thing as you take an over-under. Rashee Rice, 5 receptions, and Derrick Henry, 50-plus rushing yards. That's minus 100. So if you want to throw, and this is safe, if you want to make 100% of your return in one night, I think that is an absolute lock, in my opinion. Rashee Rice, when you look at what he's done, when he's gotten 7 or more receptions, he's hit 5 or 7 or more targets. He's hit 5 receptions in every single game of his career.
Wow.
So Rashee Rice is going to get 5 catches. And I struggle to see how Derrick Henry doesn't rush for 50-plus rushing yards.
It's funny. I love the fact that we tied the right bet back into the show, man. Yeah. Versus just having our own right bet show and all that. It's kind of cool because you get to incorporate betting in a big way into what we do. And it is certainly a huge thing of what we do here at TWS. And I want to ask you guys, do us a huge favor. Give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Turn on post notifications if you haven't done so already so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content. Before we get out of here for the day, I definitely want to talk about Israel Adesanya. And you know what's crazy? When we were making our topics for the show today, I just wanted to talk about what was next for him. I don't know if you guys saw what happened.
Oh, yeah.
He had an altercation just this morning in New Zealand where he spit on a guy over a road rage incident. And it's almost like the universe knew that I was going to be speaking about Israel Adesanya today. Let me just say this. I hate when athletes are on this mountaintop and then they just fall off. I hate when they are on the mountaintop and they just fall off. And it's like the losses start to mount. The pressure starts to mount. And it could just be a road rage incident, right? It could just be a road rage incident and the loss to Sean Strickland or the loss to DDP aren't a thing where it's really actually bothering him. But I just think I feel like it is a little bit, man. And it sucks that he had this road rage incident right right after
Yeah.
losing to DDP just like literally 2 weeks ago. But I want to speak to more so what's next for him, man. What is next for Israel Adesanya? I think the next fight that makes a lot of sense for him is Jiri Prochazka.
Mhm.
Jiri Prochazka lost at light heavyweight in dramatic fashion to Alex Poatan Pereira, and he's now talking about moving down to middleweight. He needs a dance partner. He's not going to just get a championship fight just because he's moving to middleweight. And I think Israel makes a lot of sense for him. The fact of the matter is, what do you do if Israel does beat him? Does Israel still want to keep fighting just to fight, or does Israel Adesanya want to be fighting for championship? If he wants to fight for a championship, as long as DDP is a champion, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. But maybe it makes sense if he moves up to light heavyweight. What are your thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, I think I've got 2 thoughts on this. One, I do think that this is just a road rage incident, and that's what just from the video once again, we don't know the full story. Respect to the other dude because that's ballsy walking straight up to him with his car. I don't know that because respectfully, road rage that's a big problem. You walk up on a dude with a McLaren, you walk up right up to his car, you're asking for something. I don't know what the whole incident was. I'm sure maybe it was Izzy who was the one who was driving fast up on him. But I think that's just personally crazy.
Yeah.
What's next for him? I'm with you. I think he's content, man. And that's what sucks when you look at like his career. I don't think that he really I think he knows that he's not going to go back and get a title shot. I think that, like, yeah, he could fight Jiri. I'm with you. I just don't see a world where Izzy is ever returning as champion. I think if Izzy goes out and gets a Jiri fight, I like that fight. I just can't see him being champion right now. I don't think his mindset's there, Malik. I think after the Alex Pereira fight, I think he was content with his career. And at that point is where I think the flip switch. If he would have retired there, he'd be riding high into the sunset now.
Yeah.
Then he went and got overconfident, lost to Sean Strickland. Then he went and lost to Jerkis Duplessis. But you can tell Malik in his post-fight press conference, he said, you know what? I fought great. And I think he's still going to go out and try to fight. I think he still feels he is at his best. And I think it can be great. I just don't think that it's there. And I think it's very difficult to go and get back to a title shot. So at this point, it sucks to see because Izzy was a great champion. Izzy was on a whole different tier. Malik, I think within the next year, we see Izzy as another guy, and that's what sucks. And we're at that, part with Kamaru Usman. Kamaru right now, respectfully, is another guy, and that's what sucks.
Wow.
And I think Izzy is right there. After this last fight, I think Izzy, with his career, is one of the all-time greats. Right now in the UFC, I think as a pure fighter, I think he's just another guy fighting to be in that title contention.
And that sucks, man, because was the guy cringe at times? Yeah. But it sucks to see a guy who was at the highest level of his profession go out the way that he's kind of going out.
Yep.
And I think that for me, watching Israel Adesanya, I've got to feel that, man, this situation, whether it be with, I think the Alex Pereira, it's crazy to say, the Alex Pereira thing was a blessing and a curse.
Yep.
You reached the highest mountaintop. You knew what you had accomplished, right? But did all the motivation, everything that Israel wanted to do in this industry, in this sport, culminate when he beat Alex Poatan?
Yes.
And I think it did.
Yep.
I think it did. And it's like, I think he's okay with that too. I think that moment will forever. He wanted to be able to say that he could beat that guy. I don't know if there's too many more motivating moments for a guy like Israel Adesanya. And for me, it's like, maybe that's where you hang it up. Maybe that's when you hang up the gloves and you say, we should be done. Right? It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Israel moving forward. But I want to get some of these questions before we head out of here. Our guy, Sean Brennan, said, you guys come into Arrowhead next week. Love the passion you guys bring. Love to meet you guys. We're still talking that through. I'm not exactly sure just yet if we'll pop out there. I was there for the AFC Championship game. You guys have some damn good food in Kansas City. So we'll definitely be talking that through, man. I would love to meet you too. And I appreciate you as a Chiefs fan watching. You watch State of the Jungle. You watch this show. We really do appreciate you. And the morning show is going to be for the entire NFL, the entire UFC when NBA is back in season. We'll be talking everything through sports, and I'm really excited about that. Let me see.
I like this UFC question real quick. Gary Jellison, he said, who are the up-and-comers you guys see as the next big guys in the UFC? I actually really like this question. Obviously, you've got, I don't know who you want to get to. Obviously, Peyton Talbot.
You knew I was going to go to him. Peyton
Yeah.
Talbot is going to be a force in the UFC. He's a guy that I'm really, really excited about. There's some other guys. Well, Danny, is there anybody on the tip of your tongue?
The one guy I want to talk about, and we watched this guy. I believe we watched this fight together. Everybody needs to know this guy's name. Let me make sure I pronounce this right. But Mauricio Ruffy.
Yeah.
He is one of the most exciting fighters I've ever watched. And I've only watched one fight live of his. He is a Brazilian, and he was dominant in his first fight in the UFC. And he didn't fight some slouch. He fought Jamie Malarkey, and that fight was, let me just say, that was one of the biggest, for lack of better terms, biggest ass whoopings I've ever watched from a guy who just came into the UFC. So he's a guy, I wrote down his name as soon as I watched him, and he's truly one of the only guys that, and I would say more, I'm not a lifelong UFC guy. I probably watched UFC the last 6 years, but in those 6 years of watching, he is the most exciting debut I've ever watched. And he is the one guy I truly can say, hey, I wrote down this dude's name as soon as I first saw him, probably outside of Sean O'Malley when we first watched Sean O'Malley. But he's a guy I have no qualms seeing him in the next 3 years being a winning the title, honestly.
Man, I mean, I love that question because it's a loaded one. There's a lot of guys that have, so the UFC has kind of been skewed a little bit lately with like their rankings. And so a lot of these young guys that we're talking about have already started to enter into the rankings a little bit. I would say Su Amabayev, a guy that I'm looking forward to at the flyweight division. He's a guy that I think can make a lot of waves. It's funny. I'm going to say this name and you're probably going to think, oh, you're just being a casual when I say this, but I don't. I think Paddy Pimblett is going to shock a lot of people. I think people thought Paddy Pimblett was just going to come in and be a hype train and leave. I think Paddy Pimblett, I see championship potential with him. She got close, she lost, but Aaron Blanchfield, I still believe in Aaron Blanchfield. I still think Aaron Blanchfield is going to be a problem, but I think Manon Fiorot is next champion in that weight class. Tatiana Suarez is a person that I think is going to hold championship gold here shortly as well. There's a couple of other names that we can go. We can literally, I can have an entire show based off of this and talk about this all day. Again, some of these guys that I'm talking about are already in the rankings. Guys like JDM, Jack Della Maddalena, Ian Machado Gary. I think Ian Machado Gary could be welterweight champion. A lot of people don't like him, but I think that guy is otherworldly talented. There's a lot of guys to choose from, and Diego Lopez is a guy that I keep my eyes on as well in the featherweight division. Although I don't think he'd beat Ilia Topuria. I want to get to some more questions before we head out of here. James Angelo says, I don't think anyone will ever go out as bad as Bernard Hopkins. Yeah, that was horrible. He got knocked out of the ring. James Angelo says, what about the Latino dude who screams, chee wee wee? Yeah, he actually punched Daniel in his ribs. Yeah, he got punched in his rib. Daniel got punched in his ribs by him a couple weeks back. How was that meeting?
It was a funny meeting. The dude, he was just doing a meetup. That's why I think people get twisted. Is these guys are UFC guys, but then especially a guy like him, he's 20 years old. He's just a kid. So it's like, I'm glad he's getting the publicity. I'm glad the dude's probably making a lot of money from his brand. I got punched by him in the stomach with a boxing glove. I mean, drop me. Dude's a beast. And I'd just be curious. I hope he has a lot of success in the UFC. It's going to be, I just hope he's got to work on his stand-up a little bit if he wants to be that upper echelon. But yeah, he's definitely one you have to include in the conversations. And we'll see. He's got to fight this coming week.
Yeah.
Is that or in 2 weeks? 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So we'll see. We'll see how he does.
Want to get to Gary Jellison's question before we head out of here. Thanks, guys. Anything special going on tonight? Yeah, I think we're heading off to Dayton to go support our guys Drew and Ron as they're doing something pretty special up there. I think we're gonna head out there for them for a little bit and support those guys. And at 7 p.m., I did a sit-down one-on-one interview special with rookies Jermaine Burton and Dejan Anthony. Truly special stuff, amazing stuff. Hope that you guys, if you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when that goes live at 7 p.m. We appreciate you guys for spending your mornings with us. We'll be back here tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., as we get you guys all squared away and ready for Friday Night Football in Brazil and week 1 of the NFL season. Appreciate you guys spending your mornings with me. And remember, there's only one way to do sports in the morning now, and that is the right way. Take care, everybody.